If you have to be fully healed to date, then most humans on this planet would be single forever. So there's this idea going around about how you should be fully healed in order to date or be in a relationship. And on the surface, it sounds mature, it sounds reasonable, it sounds responsible. But here's the problem. Being healed shouldn't be seen as a destination that you have to achieve or you have to go to. And in reality, healing isn't linear, it's a process. And sometimes certain wounds can only be healed through a relationship. Here's something a lot of people miss when it comes to relationships and healing. Relationships can be a modality of healing, not just a reward for being perfectly healed. In fact, I would even argue that relationships are a necessary conduit to heal relational wounds and trauma. And if we all waited until we have zero wounds, zero triggers, zero patterns left to work through, then none of us would even be in a relationship. Our nervous system will always be intact, no matter how much we try to detach from it, as long as we live on this planet. Because it's part of this game called life. It's part of being human on this planet. The goal is to heal through our triggers by observing and identifying them and how our nervous system works without judging or suppressing them. We simply observe it as it arises. And just to be clear, when I talk about relationships being a necessary conduit for us to heal our relational wounds and trauma, this doesn't mean trauma dumping on the other person. And it doesn't mean that you're gonna make your partner be your therapist. It doesn't mean avoiding responsibility for your behavior. Healing while being in a relationship only works if there's self-awareness, boundaries, and a willingness on both sides to take accountability. And of course, internal healing can happen in isolation, but relational healing requires being in a relationship in order to facilitate and expedite the healing process. The truth is, relational healing can only happen in safe relationships through emotional containment, accountability, and rewiring your subconscious belief through positive reinforcement in a healthy relationship. The difference is you're healing alongside someone and you're not offloading it onto them. So how do relationships help facilitate healing? And does this mean that we have to give up our own autonomy and being dependent on someone else for our own healing, our own well-being? Here's the thing, humans are social creatures, and this is something we can't deny or lie to ourselves. We need each other as a species to survive. There's a difference between dependency and interdependency. And dependency is relying on someone to feel safe, whole, or validated. It's fear-based and the relationship becomes a crutch rather than a choice. On the other hand, interdependency means there's mutual support, you don't lose your independence, and the connection strengthens you instead of taking over who you are. Dependency says, I need you, or else I'll fall apart. Interdependence says, I am whole as a person, and I would like to stand alongside you. So what does this mean when it comes to relationships? Some people say that relationships shouldn't replace autonomy, but this isn't about replacing autonomy. It's about healing the relational wound, the wound that says that being close to someone else is not safe. That wound that tells you that closeness isn't safe. Because autonomy is easy to maintain when you're in isolation, when you're all alone. Anyone can be autonomous by living like a hermit. What's even harder and actually matters is being in a relationship where autonomy doesn't have to disappear for love to exist. For a lot of people, relationships always meant sacrifice. Giving up your needs, giving up your boundaries, giving up autonomy. So when a relationship shows that you don't have to abandon yourself, it challenges that entire blueprint, that belief that relationships always meant sacrifice. This isn't about cold independence or practical transactions disguised as partnership. It's about containment. So what is relational containment? Containment means trusting that the other person has your best interest at heart and being able to hold the same care and love for them in return. It's mutual, grounded, and it's conscious. Relationships aren't supposed to be two people hiding behind emotional walls trying to prove how independent they are. And they're definitely not about control either. They're about being present with one another without losing yourself in the process. And you might ask, oh, so it's about loving the other person the way I love myself? Not entirely true, because everyone feels and receives love differently. Everyone has different love languages. It's about the willingness to understand what the other person needs and how they receive love. And that's what containment actually is. So the entire notion of you have to be fully healed, only then you're allowed to be in a relationship, may sound responsible on the surface, but it misses something crucial. And yes, healing matters, self-work matters, but not all healing happens in isolation. The belief that someone has to be fully healed before being worthy of love turns healing into a prerequisite of connection, as if love is a reward for perfection. That's the trap a lot of people fall into, because it teaches people to withhold themselves, to stop reaching out, to stop connecting with other people, to believe that they're only lovable when they're fixed. Sometimes what actually heals the deepest wounds within us, especially relational wounds, isn't more self-analysis, but to be held and loved in a safe relationship. A relationship that allows space and safety for healing. And what truly matters isn't being healed, but being self-aware. Having wounds doesn't cancel out the fact that you are self-aware, you're honest, and you have accountability. You can notice your triggers, question your reactions, and take responsibility without blaming or projecting onto the other person. That level of awareness changes everything. Because at the end of the day, healing doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty, reflection, the willingness to grow, and emotional safety, sometimes alone and sometimes in a relationship. I hope this video has given you a new insight or perspective about love, relationships, and healing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you for watching.